Tree of Life Oddria is an upcoming multiplayer survival game from Odd One Games. Shipwrecked, you wake up on a strange island and you have one choice to make. Will you be a friend to the island's other inhabitants, or will you be the enemy? The game has PvE, PvP, online co-op, and will have dedicated server support allowing you to make your own world. The game has all the usual survival elements, resource hunting, building, farming, as well as some other unique elements such as collecting the souls of boss creatures. Once defeated, these souls will apparently allow you to travel closer to the top of the island, whatever that means. I played the 0.4 alpha demo of the game as part of the Steam Game Festival. As it is a very early alpha, there are of course some bugs which are to be expected. Also, the game may change before its launch, which is scheduled for release sometime in 2021. That does give them a little bit more time, but it'll be interesting to see if they can make it by the end of the year. I will mention the bugs I saw during my time playing, but don't think too much of it as it is still early and they will be fixed. An important note to make at this point is that the available demo was for solo-only gameplay, and all multiplayer elements had been turned off, so all of this is based purely from a solo perspective. In this video you will see my gameplay as I talk about my personal experience with the game. Let's get into it. A pretty intense opening cutscene sees you shipwrecked and struggling to survive. Eventually, a beacon of light beckons and we wake up on the shore of the mysterious island. The graphical style is bright and colourful and looks pretty nice. It isn't too taxing on the system either, even at max settings, which is always good. There are a couple of NPCs on the beach. One seems to be there only for the alpha and allows you to randomly generate a character appearance. I tried a few and they were pretty basic for now, mainly different coloured hairstyles. I was unable to get a female character to generate, but apparently that option is available. I would assume some more extensive character customization for a multiplayer game like this in the final release. I set off exploring and collecting resources. There are lots of enemy mobs scattered around the map, and more in little villages that you can raid for resources. There are also animals and livestock that you can liberate and take back to your base for a better life. In terms of survival, you simply have your health and hunger bars, along with a Breath of the Wild style stamina circle. There is no thirst mechanic, and I'm not sure if I just missed it, but there seems to be no way to sleep. Your poor dude will live through an endless cycle of days and nights and never again get any rest. I followed some fireflies which guided me to the top of an outcrop, and there I found my first weapon. Or tool really, an axe in a log. There was also a talking totem pole that gave me some XP. Nighttime came and with it new dangers. Once the sun set, zombies begin crawling out of the ground all around you. They're pretty easy to dispatch, and they drop arms and legs that can be used as weapons to beat the next one to death. Or back to death, I guess. This system of finding weapons in the world reminds me of Breath of the Wild. In fact, the whole combat system is a lot like Breath of the Wild, but more on that in a moment. I found a nice looking overlook up the top of a small hill that seemed like a good place to test out the building mechanics. I figured it would be pretty safe up there as you had to jump up on a ledge to get to it, so I headed up and began building. The game works off a tech tree, and as you level up, you acquire points to spend on new recipes. This tech tree includes the standard build pieces, so you'll have to level up a little before you can even start building. XP can be gained by pretty much every action you take in the game. Exploring, fighting, collecting, even eating will all give you experience, so leveling up is at a steady pace. There is also an ability point system with 4 stats for you to improve. These are weight, health, stamina, and sustenance, which helps with your hunger. Back with building, the game has the usual workstations, a workbench, woodworking table, smelter, countertop for cooking, and quite a few more. They're pretty cheap to make and can be thrown down wherever you need them, especially the workbench. This ends up being pretty convenient later on. I began whacking away at the trees and turning them into logs with which to make my home. The building works on a typical grid snap system with both square and triangle building pieces. The pieces are pretty cheap, but there can be a lot of running back and forth depending on your weight limit. You can build some pretty nice looking places, but you won't be able to furnish them until later on, unless you put all of your available tech tree points into the building branches. Not easily done when you need weapons and armor to progress and stand a chance in fights. I had forgotten that zombies climb out of the ground at night, so my base placement did nothing to protect against these guys. There is a repair mechanic available, so I assume enemies attack your base, but the zombies did nothing to mine. It could be that the repair mechanic is there to fix damage made by other players trying to raid your base. There is also an option to delete build pieces, but I had an issue here, as every time I deleted one piece, I would become unable to delete any more, and would have to exit to the main menu and reload the game before I could delete another piece. It did get a little irritating. I did see some bugs with the zombies around this time too. Instead of spawning in the ground, most were spawning in midair before falling to the ground. Others would spawn inside the rocks and constantly trigger attacks that I couldn't see. I'm sure this is something that will be fixed pretty soon, but I did get a laugh out of seeing a zombie climb out of the air above a cliff edge and then plummet down into the ocean. Oh, and talking about the ocean, the zombies can swim too, so don't think you can escape into the water to evade them. Once I made some progress with my home, I set out exploring once again. The map is pretty large with several different biomes. There is food everywhere, and the hunger mechanic feels a little redundant after a while, as you can just spam berries and carrots or other food that you find lying around. You don't have to worry about saving some food for later either, as it all regenerates the next day. This goes for the trees too, and building can be quicker if you time a good rotation of logging and building with the respawns of the trees, as the day and night cycle is fairly short. The combat itself is your standard dodge and slash and is fairly easy once you get into it. The mobs telegraph their attacks by flashing red, so if you time it right, after dodging a couple of times, it is pretty easy to dispatch most enemies. The weapons have durability, and in the same way as Breath of the Wild, none last very long. I made a bow, and it only just lasted through one fight before breaking. It's here that the workbench comes in handy. You can throw it down pretty much anywhere, so you can make weapons as you need them, as long as you keep a collection of supplies on you. This can be a little annoying at times if you are trying to collect certain resources, such as iron, which is fairly heavy, so you won't be able to collect as much on a run, with an inventory already full of possibly needed weapon supplies. The best system I found in the early game was to collect the zombies' arms and legs, as well as the carrot swords you can get sometimes when collecting carrots. These do similar amounts of damage to the stone sword, and are free and fairly light. Exploring some more, I came across a couple of places of interest, including a temple that wanted me to collect the souls of bosses in the area, as well as some kind of shrine with a teleporting gate that didn't work just yet. I assumed it might activate once I'd collected the souls, so I set off to find the bosses. The first boss I came across was a giant shark man, and proved a little harder to dispatch than the normal mobs, but wasn't that tough overall, with plenty of dodging and kiting. I claimed my soul and raided his base for some chickens that I took back to my base. With no pen for them just yet, I kept them as house pets. I headed off to find the next boss, and along my way found an entrance to the next biome, a desert area. I was unable to progress through to check it out, as many high-level mobs were blocking the way. The game suggested I gather a group of friends to make it through, not something I could do, as there was no multiplayer in the demo. I climbed to the top of another hill and found another talking totem, and from there I spotted my next target. The next boss was a giant bear, and was much more aggressive than any of the other mobs I had fought so far. He hit really hard and was pretty fast, but after a lot of dodging, I did manage to defeat him. The last boss was a giant tree that was hidden away underground at the bottom of a mine. It was a bit of a strange battle, and didn't do any real damage to me. It just spawned a constant stream of cute little plant people that I brutally massacred. I'm not sure if it was killing a certain number of ads that defeated the boss, or if it was because I was hacking away at the pacifist tree at the same time. Regardless, I defeated him, and got my final soul. With my 3 souls in hand, I returned to the earlier temple and forged the forest soul. I was unsure what I was supposed to do with it. I tried heading back to the teleporter to see if that would activate it, but it didn't. If anybody else has played the alpha and knows what to do with the Forest Soul, then please let me know. So what did I think of Tree of Life Oddria? Overall, Tree of Life Oddria is a pretty fun survival game that would be good to relax to within a solo world, as it is pretty easy. It plays a lot like Breath of the Wild, and the durability of weapons and the weight limit prove more of a challenge than any of the mobs. The building follows the familiar square and triangle system, so any design you have made in previous games should work here as well. The buildings have a quaint cottage look to them, and you could spend a lot of time trying out various designs or building yourself a village. The tech tree allows for a sense of progression, and the world is bright and colourful, with lots of enemies around and places to explore, such as hidden caves. Of course, there are different biomes to change things up, and although I got a look at the desert area in the distance, I was unable to make it there. The soul collecting system is interesting and gives you something to work towards, and I am interested where the teleporting gates will take you. This is all based on my experience in a solo world, of course, and it's pretty safe to say that the game will take on a whole new form in a multiplayer world. The game says you have the choice to become the enemy, so having the added threat of enemy players around to kill you, raid your base and take your loot, completely transforms the gameplay. The easiness of the world mobs becomes a secondary worry when other players are the real danger. I think the easiest way to describe Tree of Life Oddria is a cartoonish Conan Exiles with Breath of the Wild styled combat. It does what it does pretty well, but doesn't offer anything new besides maybe the soul collecting. I enjoyed my time playing, and as I said, I found the solo life fairly relaxing. I only planned to try the game out quickly, but before I knew it I'd been playing for about 6 hours. There is already engrossing content to be found in the game's current state, which is a good sign for the future. It will be interesting to see if they make their planned release date. The game did run well for me with only a couple of bugs, so it seems as though they are well on their way. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you aren't already, and let me know your thoughts on the game down in the comments below. That's all from me. See you in the next one.